Hello everyone. Just before starting the presentation, can some of you react to see if you are alive or not, if everything is well or not for you? The sound is great. You are seeing my screen. You can react with thumbs up. You have an icon that you can click. Oh, nice. So basically, this presentation will be regarding using API first in a project instead the more traditional way. There will be no live coding. Okay, this is more to try share an idea of a possible approach that we can adopt in our teams. Um, Further, let's start with proper presentations. So my name is Ruben. I'm part of synvert for almost 4 years. In terms of roles, I've done almost every kind of role since development, management, technical lead of a team. And taking this in consideration, what I will share with you was my experience doing every role since developing into team management, and what was the biggest advantage or disadvantage that I've experienced with this kind of approach. Okay, this is not a selling proposition that you should adopt API first in every project, because that will not be possible. It's more, let's share a little of experience from a developer to developers, from a technical slash management person to technical slash management persons too. Um, in terms of technologies, like I was saying, I'm a little a jack of all trades, master of none. Because of my work experience, I had to adapt to several stacks depending on the client requirements. And once again, API first is not strictly related to a specific language. It's a philosophy, an approach. For this presentation, I will try to divide this presentation in four huge parts. First, I will present you a use case of a feature that was requested for a given product with some details, overview details. I don't want to go very in deep in terms of details. Second chapter will be, okay, I have the requirements. What will happen if I took the more traditional way? That is, I will do the code first, and after that, I will do the integration, documentation, and so on, so on. Third chapter will be API first design. And I will try to explain in which parts we can divide the API first design, which points are relevant in terms of advantages and disadvantages, and finally a quick summary between, okay, we have code first, we have API first, what should I use on a project? And to finalize, a little QA session. I hope that you can participate. If you have any question, just raise your hand. If you have any comment, just leave on the chat. I don't want this to be a strictly monologue presentation. You can participate. Now, starting with the use case. Let's say that I'm working on a team or on a project, and this project is for customer management solution. I need to manage my customers because I want to do some kind of business work in terms of trying to understand in which type of customers I want to spend more time, because it will be targeting my business type, uh, which kind of customers that I can use for marketing purposes, and so on and so on. And to be able to develop this product, My team structure or my project structure, it's divided in three big areas. I have one backend team, one front-end team, and one QA team. And in a certain moment of my product development, our product manager reach every team and say that, guys, I have a new requirement. I need that you develop a feature that enables this product to search for customers within a range of business areas. For instance, I want to focus my next month talking with guys that work with cars, guys that work with boats, etc., etc. And taking this in consideration, every team starts to figuring out, okay, I need to do this, this, and this, and they will use a way to implement this. For the first use case, for the first practical case, the team will use the more traditional way, that is, I will implement this the way that I know that I've used it in several projects. That is, I will code first and I will document everything after. Okay, this will be our first use case scenario with a real practical example of someone doing this. And what will happen with this team? Let's say that, okay, my requirement was I need to develop a feature that allows me to search for customers in a given area. We have three different teams that should work on this, but we are a project that uses code first to do everything. And most of the times, what could happen is that the backend team will start doing some stuff, and the other two teams will be waiting for the backend team. And this is the first part of this process. That is, okay, we will start with codes. On the code part, the backend team is doing the implementation. They are implementing the new endpoint, the new logic, the business logic that was required. They finish this work. They put this work in review, and internally, the backend team approves this. So far, so good. Everything looks that it's working as usual. But we will start on the phase on this process that more problems can appear. Okay, backend team approved the request, everything is working. We deploy something, and we say to the QA and the front end team that, guys, we have already deployed our application. You can start implementing the front end, and you can start implementing the QA stack to integrate with our new endpoint. And now starts one of the huge drawbacks when we use the code first approach. That is, the front end will try to integrate something that the backend did. And the front end starts to realizing that, hey guys, sadly, we can't use your endpoint this way because our front end is not prepared for this kind of information. You are requesting some kind of information that we are not aware that we need this, and the QA team will have the same problem. And this will delivers to another problem in terms of process. We can enter on something that could be called the refactor nightmare, where the integration team starts to request changes to the backend team. This was the first team that initiated this process. And something that could took like, let's say, 2 weeks to do can transform in like 1 month to do because front end is doing one thing, back end is doing another thing. They are talking different languages to do the same thing, and this will delay the end result. What this will cause? developers will be unhappy, the product owners will be unhappy, and someone will start to raise questions why this will take so long to be delivered. And this is one of the biggest drawbacks when using a code first approach. Okay, I'm not saying that code first approach is bad in every aspect. Where we can use this is I have a small team. My team does every part of the development, backend, front end, QA, or I have only one guy that is a full stack that will do everything. Okay, code first makes totally sense because it's only one communication channel that must be ensured. That is the guy that will develop this. But when we start to raise our team size, we will start to have several communication channels, several teams that will try to integrate what we are doing. And in that point, um, we can start having lots of problems because of this. Another point, and this is an advantage, in theory, using a code first approach, we will have reduced time to deliver of a feature because we will not spend time doing documentation, trying to agree stuff with other teams, etc., etc. But like I've talked before, this it's not always the perfect solution. This will be true on small teams, not in huge teams. And all of those are advantages and disadvantages to a code first approach. Just a little clarification because in some, let's say, thinking schools, some guys defend that the code first could be part of a design API first approach too. But that justification is more to say that, okay, I'm using code first because after that I can create documentation and documentation is part of API first design. It's debatable, okay? It's a huge depends if it's really like that or not. But if we want to be very traditional, code first, it's totally separated from API first because the code first means that I will start developing without agreement with everyone. Um, okay, this could be also debatable, but the main idea is this that I will do everything and I will deploy something, and someone should integrate with this without without having first a discussion slash approach slash agreement with every team. Okay. Now, going to an API first approach, okay, we can separate our API first approach in four big areas of implementation or thinking way of doing stuff. The first the first step is a planning phase. The second step is an API development environment phase. Basically, this phase will create or will generate the needed tools for a developer to do our endpoint implementation. The integrated development environment is where the developer starts to do stuff, starts to implementing really the code that will present the feature. And finally, the integration where we will deploy everything and present to our POs, PMs, etc., saying that, okay, the feature that you requested, it's already made. You can start testing. You can see if this goes to your wish. Going a little deeper in each phase. Planning phase. What are the main objectives on this phase? Every team should be part of this. Every The product owner, the product manager should be part of this phase. And the output that we should get from this phase is all endpoints for a given feature should be clear for every team. Every team should agree that, okay, I need an endpoint to fetch customer information. Okay, for that endpoint, what I will need? I need to pass filters for the country, for the business type, for the company name, etc., etc. Front end is aware of that. Back end is aware of that. If we need more endpoints to help on this feature development, both teams already agreed that that should be made. We will have tasks for that, and both development work can work in a separate way because in the first instance, everyone agrees with what I want to do and what it's needed to do. Another thing that is important is doing one thing that most of the developers don't like to do because it's a kind of boring work: documentation. On this phase, we should already have a first draft of the feature documentation. Again, with information for the endpoints, the feature itself, what we want to do, what we want to take from this, possible scenarios of this feature, possible good scenarios, wrong scenarios, if we can or not already prepare this feature to have a refactor to add new capabilities in the future, every single point should be defined on this part. Okay. After this part is finalized, everyone is agreeing with everything. We can go to the development part and so on. The second phase, and just one thing, I'm saying phase, and don't you can consider this as a component too, but I prefer to say phase since this is a logic way of thinking about doing this kind of stuff. API development environment. What will happen at this moment? At this moment, we will take on the output that was made on the first phase, the planning phase, and we can already generate and start to do some kind of code to generate the mock servers that, for instance, the front end will use or the QA team will use until the back end is ready to deliver the new endpoint. We will generate the possible SDK clients for the front end and QA too, so that they don't need to implement everything by hand to try call our endpoint, since we already defined that, okay, we want this, will provide this. This is, like I was saying before, this is like a pre-step of starting doing code. We have the needed tools already defined. We have the needed endpoints already defined. We can generate the mocked servers, endpoints, response, requests, etc. to start flowing our work and provide this to the other teams. And there is one of the biggest, at least for me, winning points of an API first approach instead of code first approach. Starting already in this phase, we can have parallel work of every team. No team will be waiting for another team to deliver something because every team is aware that we want to deliver this and I need this to do my feature. Third, integrated development environment. Okay, this is the part that developers like. Every single developer wants to do one thing, is doing code. And this is the phase for that. In this phase, we will really implement the new endpoints, the business logic for the future. Front-end can start doing their front-end magic to create the interface for the users, using the generated client and mock server that was created on the previous phase. Um, we can start running our tests. Not only the QA team, but even the development team can start writing the unit tests, integration tests, and so on to try set if everything is going in the direction that was requested by our product owner, product manager, and finally, code. Develop code, putting some music. Let's go enter on the like using a racing expression, the apex zone where the developer is so comfortable that they don't want to leave that zone. Let's go implement the feature. Let's go deliver what was requested. And finally, integrate. And now it's the second part that I think that we have more advantage with API first design. Okay, we go to the integration part. Everything is okay. Everyone was aware of what was needed to do. The code review phase will start. Everyone can give some feedback. And we can have some refactors too. Okay, that could happen. But in terms of dimension or in terms of refactor workloading, in theory, because everything in life is it's a huge depends, will be way smaller than using a code first approach. Okay. And in this phase, we will do the deployments. The deployments will be almost on the same sprint because every team was aware of what needs to do to be made. And if the backend is saying that, okay, guys, my endpoint is ready, I will start deploying my part. The front end will just need to tweak their configurations to instead using the mock server, start pointing to the new endpoints that was deployed by the backend. And if everything went well, it will be a pleasant developer experience because in a first end, every team knows, every team knew what kind of response request and endpoints will be available to be consumed. And finally, the best part, the PO part, work is done. We were able to deliver something on the estimated time, or even if we are not able to deliver on the estimated time, the delay, in theory, again, will be way lower than using a different approach where the team don't communicate with another team. And this is basically the phases for the API first. Some notes, okay. Once again, this is the idea. Sometimes the idea don't comes to the reality because of external factors or adaptation time to start using an API first on a team, and this is one of the biggest advantages when a team starts to use an API first approach. We will need to take some time to readjust our internal process in terms of team development, feature development to adopt API first. And for small teams, and when I say small teams, I will take the example that I gave before. A team with two, three developers maybe don't make any sense to use API first. A team or a project with several teams, one team for front end, one team for back end, one team for back end, like our use case, that in that case make more sense to start using API first as a development approach. Okay. Now to finalize a little code first versus API first, which is better, which is worse? To be strictly direct, both can be used on the development work. Okay, API first is not like a golden tool that will solve every problem in your team. Code first is not like the poison in your team that will destroy your application. Depending on the team size, depending on the project size, we can use both. Um, on my opinion, like I was saying before, code first, it makes a lot more sense to use a code first approach in small teams, non-agile teams. If the product owner is aware that using a code first will mean most of the time that it will be a sequential work of doing stuff, and this could delay a lot the deliver, or even we can have some developers kind of stopped waiting for the delivery of something that another team is doing. In theory, it's a shorter time to deliver. Like I was saying, in small teams, that this can be true if the guy is doing everything. In small teams, that we could have like a front end and a back end, that this could not be really true if they don't communicate. Possible lack of documentation because we are so focused in doing developing, doing codes, and in our mindset, our work ends when the code is delivered, and we have a low development overhead that is basically this is so traditional way of doing stuff. This is the way that we learn to code on school, that we learn to do on or on our first professional experience, so on, so on. That it's already part of us when we need to do something in terms of developing. The other side, API first, bigger teams for sure. Um, we have 3 teams, we have 10 teams, whatever. And if something was requested that needs the implementation from several teams, API first for sure, use this. More agile teams, this could be debatable. I saw this approach more on projects that use Scrum, for instance, to planning stuff. Um, allows parallel work, like I've told before. Me as a backend developer, I can start doing my work while the front end guys, the QA guys, the mobile guys, whatever, they can do their work too because existed in the first end a huge agreement on every team that we want to do this. I'm aware of what I need to do. Let's go. Incentivates the ownership. This part is like as a developer, no one likes to be like, let me say, a guy that only executes code. As a developer, we want to participate on the technical discussion of the future. And if we are able to say that, okay, we will have this endpoint, and the backend guys start to say, okay, for that endpoint, I'll do this way. Because for me makes sense. And the front end guys can say, oh, wait, back end guys. That could make sense for you, but in front end perspective, we can do we can consume your endpoint this way because of this, and this. Let's try brainstorm a little this to find a common way or a common ground for both teams. And we will start to take the ownership on something because part of us will be part of what we will deliver for the client. Enforces project documentation because first phase planning, and already on this phase we will create documentation for our new feature. Even if it is a draft documentation on that phase, it's already something that someone could check during the process. Agreement between teams, like I was saying, every team is aware of what they need to do and they will do. But what the huge drawback for me, it is increase the initial overhead of development. Changing mindsets, changing toolkits, changing pipelines to adopt this approach could take some time. Okay. If we look on a management perspective, on a short to medium term, this will delay our work on the first developments that were made with API first. On a medium to long term, we will we will earn a lot of time because everything was documented, everything was working with with communication between everyone. And if for some reason we need to do a refactor, a bug fix, or other things, every team is aware of what was made on that feature. Okay, and to kind of finalize again, using one or another, it is a huge, it depends on your project, on your team size, and in some situations, code first makes sense. On other situations, API first makes sense. It's your decision in terms of project. For me, again, bigger teams, API first, because this will improve a lot the communication and the collaboration inside the project, inside the development. And we can even try create a more common language between the developers and the product owners, the product managers, and so on. Uh, and basically, my presentation was regarding this. If you have any questions, just say. If you have any point that you want to raise, please go on. Um, Sorry, this was not a live coding session because this is more a way of doing stuff and not how to do stuff with a given language or a given approach. And it's all. Thank you all. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. Please leave a comment. We can have like 2 to 3 minutes to start this part. If not, thank you all. We will close the presentation. Have a nice weekend, have a nice day, and stay well.